Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
Tyler Alfred Foone.
I think the water he shoots has been absorbed into his body before he shoots it.
So he has limited ammo. He slowly looked me up and down.
If you're any indication, love, I think I'm gonna like it here.
Oh, gross.
So many tubes and wires were plugged into his arms and legs and back, supplying him with the precise slow drip of water he needed to narrowly cling to life.
The failsafe is one of those things that I cannot guarantee its continued success. I advise against relying on it as a solution in the future.
I call it OGS, overgrouping syndrome. The robotic spider was gone. It was as if I'd spent the last 15 minutes vomiting, crying, spinning in circles, and ramming my head into a wall. I would not be ungrouping any more bug tanks anytime soon. So this is like a save the world fight, then.
I mean, I guess it's basically my fault that both of them are still alive in the first place.
No, shut up. You're ruining it. Don't do that. We are legitimately stopping the fly from accidentally letting Typhoon take over the world. We're fighting to save the world.
These are the Beam Chronicles, with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 1 Initiation, Chapter 21, Charlie Shayde.
You would have expected Tyler to take his time resurfacing once he'd finally escaped from the dungeon. You know, chill down there in the capital water supply, sucking up every drop of moisture he could before plunging into the open air for us to fight him. I wondered why he didn't follow the underground city pipeline straight to the ocean, but Phil assured me that there was no direct path there. He could resurface at the water treatment center or any manhole in the capital, but Fly at least had the foresight to withhold from him a straight shot to a nearly infinite water supply. As things worked out, Foone was either dumb enough or directed by Fly to come up in the middle of the capital, maybe a half hour after he busted out. We got reports from scouting that claimed he knocked over a building or two, scared a few innocent civilians, you know, typical Foone stuff. But apparently all of that was just to get our attention, because he eventually stopped his rampage, held pat right in the middle of the street, and had been sitting there ever since. Probably he was just waiting for us. This just oozes trap to me, guys. I admitted on the truck ride over. It had been a long while since I'd actually come along for the ride to a bust rather than just grouping there ahead of everyone else. But then, this was a world-saving kind of mission, and those were few and far between, so special circumstances, I guess.
What other choice do we have, Charlie?
Maria said from the driver's seat.
Yeah, he's obviously waiting for us to show up, but if we don't engage, he'll just get to the ocean anyway.
Right, but it's fishy as fuck. I don't care how much water he managed to take up down there before he popped back up. It's still finite. Why just challenge us with limited ammo like that? He knows we can wait him out. Jackson and I did it without Sid months ago.
He's not the same as when you last fought him, Charlie. Depriving him of water for all this time was probably shooting ourselves in the foot. It may have actually given him a higher capacity for it. I've been reviewing the dungeon security footage, and it's pretty obvious. He can absorb much more and do so a lot quicker than he did at the beach.
Even the color was different. It was never so deep and translucent. I fear his powers have progressed. Into what, we will have to wait and see.
Yeah, well, even so, why show up to a fight on dry land like this? It's only a matter of stall for us, and he's too slow to hit me, not strong enough to damage you. Jackson might die again, I guess.
Hey, come on. I'm as useful as Sid. If I can put something between us to push against. Besides, I'm nervous enough as it is. Don't tell me I'm gonna die.
Don't worry. Even if you do die, feel safe, right?
Yeah, assuming they don't nuke HQ the second we're out of the way. Can't run the failsafe without Howie.
They won't kill Howie. Better men than Fly Foone have tried.
Ha! Fly Foone. I get it.
He's always got a contingency plan, remember?
Fine. Who's to say reviving us is part of that contingency plan then? He straight up warned us not to rely on it as an answer to our future problems. I'd rather take my chances not dying than trust that Prophet will find the compassion within himself to bring me back if I do.
Nobody will die today, my friends. He is surely outnumbered in this fight. Even if we cannot damage him, he must exhaust water to hurt us. Between us, we will withstand his attack for long enough. The day is as good as ours.
Right, exactly my point. Why sign up for that? There's something else going on here. It can't be this simple. Fly is running the show, and he's not stupid, even if Tyler is. I hoped that I was just being paranoid, and Foone was an overconfident idiot that we'd handle in minutes. Wishful thinking, to say the least.
Warning. Warning. A beam bust is in progress. Please evacuate the area. Warning. Warning.
We stepped out of the truck about half a mile from him, and Maria drove away, rounding up civilians and getting them out of danger as well. From the inside, I hadn't noticed the destruction he'd dished out during his brief riot, but now in the eerily peaceful, abandoned street, it was difficult to ignore. Crumbling buildings, busted glass and debris, even a deep trench cutting across the street, wide enough that Jackson had to fly over it while I just grouped across and Sid bounded. It was hard to believe the man peacefully waiting for us ahead was responsible for this much sheer destruction, and all with a bit of water. As we approached his location, the whole concept that he was just an idiot started to seem more plausible. We'd gotten reports that after his minor yet tornadically destructive rampage, he'd been sitting still for a bit, but I didn't expect he'd be literally sitting. I think he was actually meditating or something. His legs were crossed, eyes closed, just waiting for us to catch up. It didn't put me at ease in the slightest, just confirmed my suspicions that there were some factors to this we weren't in on yet, and I hated surprises. Jackson and Sydney and I approached Foone cautiously and slowly from behind, but even when we got within a few yards of him, he didn't budge. Eventually he spoke, all warbly and reverby, like he was in a deep cave, or I guess underwater.
You know, I've been thinking about it these last 5 minutes while I waited for you lot to catch up. You can't hurt me unless I lose water. I can't hurt you without losing water. But if I just sit here quietly, there's nothing any of us can do about it. I can easily force a stalemate by not engaging.
Sid, without hesitation, rotated his arm cannon against his thigh and fired a blast of K-Pack at Foone. Tyler, in turn, as calmly as Sid did, lazily flung his hand over his shoulder and met the goo in the air with a splash of water. The K-Pack loudly hissed as it annihilated the wave, no harm done to anybody.
Yeah, do that then. I'll bleed you dry before I even notice a hit in my munitions. Then, at least it's a fair fight numbers-wise, 2 on 2. Not sure my partner's exactly too keen on scrapping given his positioning, but I've pretty nearly had these other 2 before on my lonesome, and I won't be falling for the same gimmick twice.
I glanced up, and for the first time noticed Fly doing circles overhead. The very fact that he was here just pumped up my uneasiness, but superficially I remained cool. I guess we could always just carry you back to HQ if you're really just gonna sit there like a little bitch.
Right.
He transformed his entire self into a mini water tornado for a split second. Next thing I knew, he was standing up and looking right at me. None of us flinched. It was a pretty and flashy parlor trick, but pure theatrics.
At least that'd start something. You should really try to hold me when I'm this charged up. You know, you and me got off on the wrong foot, Chuck. I'd love to hold you sometime.
Ignored. Is that the plan, then? Fly's grand master plan, stand here forever because nobody can do anything about it? Should have brought a magazine or something.
Nah, that was my plan. I figured if I had to spend forever looking at one face, I could find worse ones.
He was so very clearly not looking at my face. I couldn't.
So mean.
He grinned fiendishly. Sydney was right about his color. At the beach, or during his last breakout attempt, he was just faintly aqua. A pale and opaque tint, in the same way Sid was purple. Now he wasn't even human. It was a deep blue, even his teeth, the whites of his eyes, and you could almost see through him. There were waves in him when he talked. He rippled a little when the wind blew. My equalizer training told me that it was stupid to engage what was essentially an unevaluated anomaly, and in this new state we had no idea what we were up against. Luckily for us, he was content for the time being standing in one place and hitting on me. It was revolting and uncomfortable, sure, but not the first time an asshole thought I was hot, not even the first time this asshole thought I was hot. Far as I could tell, it gave Phil, hell even me, time to scan the area and figure out what the hell Fly was up to. I started doing so with my sixth sense. It's kind of funny, I taunted him. You, down here, adhering to Bug Boy's master plan like a regular lackey, you never struck me as the type who'd take orders.
I'd take a few from you.
Relentless, but again, easy to ignore.
Come on, love, why don't you lose the coat? Just like last time. Show me your figure a bit. I'll admit it. It was the most distracting part. Oh, sure, the buzzing thing was a pain, but fuck. Knocked me right off my game just picturing the sort of things I could do to you.
He bit his lip and shook his head.
Pictured it a lot down in the dungeon. Got me through the tough times thinking about you.
And he grotesquely pantomimed masturbation. I stayed poised, don't get me wrong. I wanted to throw up everywhere and forever. I wanted to shoot him in the nutsack, but that's what he was looking for. And in the heat of an impending battle, tactics like this weren't the sort of thing that got me riled up. The trouble was, I quickly realized it wasn't a provocation intended for me. Mine was not the goat he was trying to get, and as I continued my scan of the surrounding area looking for a plug I could pull to thwart the whole shebang before it even started, I sixed out the heart rates of my partners, and they were racing, both of them. Jackson's especially was borderline explosion. Adrenaline rushing like a stampede of water buffalo, and shit, it would have been kind of sweet were it not occurring at such a stupidly inconvenient time. Easy, boys. Don't let him...
Tell you what, then, I'd be willing to call the whole thing off, screw flying his plan, go with you peacefully if you got over here, down on your knees, open that pretty little mouth, and wrap your lips...
Shut your fucking mouth, you asshole!
And just like that, chivalry beat out common sense. It wasn't flurry proper, not like how I did it, but I guess it was as close as these two could get in their naturally slow and unnaturally enraged states. If I weren't so pissed at them for falling for it, I would have been impressed with how well they were synchronizing off of each other. The hours of skirmishing apparently paid off. Jackson had a pickup truck he'd lifted from behind him, and he was swinging it around like a club, swiping through Foone and hammering it down on top of him. Sydney, all the while dodging this melee of truck attacks, basically alternated the truck punches with haymakers and roundhouses of his own. It was a furious enough barrage to kill Foone. Any individual hit would have done the trick for a normal person. Even Tyler should have at least gotten annoyed or hurt to strike back in like 5 seconds. But they went on for 30 straight. No response. No change. They were seeing too much red to realize that nothing at all was coming from their bombardment. It wasn't like before, where we'd strike Tyler and he'd be solid, then turn liquid at the last second to absorb the damage. The last time we fought him, we could hurt him, push him around, make him shout, disorient him a little. We just couldn't wound or injure him until he was dry. Now, in spite of their respectable gusto, Jackson and Sid couldn't even make contact. It was literally like slapping a waterfall. Every blow they landed, be it hand, foot, or truck, all of them would just fly on through his perfectly liquid form while he snickered and ignored them. No pain, no distraction, no point. When they finally realized they stopped attacking, panting in stunned disbelief at the fruitlessness of their valiant attempt.
Done? Good. My turn.
The noise alone was enough to prove this wasn't the same guy we fought on the beach. Jackson and I both jumped, then stared in awe at the concussive blast of a jet he fired into Sid. And Sydney, impenetrable, bulletproof, easygoing, stoic Sydney screamed in so much unadulterated agony it gave me a stomach ache. Jackson and I flung into action, me toward Foone, flurrying him pointlessly as everything just kept passing through his invincible body.
Be with you in a minute, Pat.
He said as I shot him and punched him with all of my might while he stood strong and unmoved.
I was instructed to ignore you for the time being. That might be the hardest part of this little scheme.
Jackson was a bit more productive in his defense, snatching up the pickup truck he'd been using and soaring over Tyler's head into the potent stream. He used the truck to deflect the water and landed right beside Sydney. Sid's screaming ceased as the truck prevented the jet from actually hitting him, and he quickly hopped up and pressed against it alongside Jackson. The two of them together, bracing against the pickup, made about 4 steps of headway toward Tyler. But all the while, he just smirked.
Perfect.
For all the power of the blast he'd sent into Sid, he was only sandbagging to get Jackson into the line of fire to protect him so he could neutralize both of them at once. Foone nearly doubled the output, and the roar of rushing water drowned out everything else. It was 20, maybe 30 feet across, and they were engulfed within. I couldn't see them or hear them anymore, but I could still six them inside of the tube of relentless water, pushing against the truck and the unending pressure behind it with just about everything they had. I grouped inside, safely guarded behind their shield. Well, guys, this is what you get for being all sexist, save the damsel in distress like idiots before we even knew what we were up against.
Really inappropriate time for a gender equality lecture.
Jackson groaned, standing about 3 feet away from the chassis and focusing on it intensely as Sid physically leaned into it with both hands. Typical man, always the wrong time to talk about it.
Charlie!
Relax, Jackson. I mean, look, obviously he's taken up a hell of a lot more water than we even realized he could, but he's using it, right? Super quickly, too. As long as you two macho men can hold up to him, he can't possibly keep this going long enough to...
Charlie, get the hell out of there. Are you trying to kill all three of you, or are you just stupid?
Phil shouted barely loud enough to hear through the comm. I grouped out, assuming he was just being a little bitch, but asked anyway. What's going on, Phil?
That pocket they're stuck in is airtight. We don't need a third person inside of it wasting the little bit of air they got.
Dude, relax. He cannot have absorbed enough water to keep this going for any longer than a few minutes.
Yeah? Check his legs.
I hadn't even realized it until Phil told me to look. For all my awesome sensing and situational awareness, I missed the key factor of the whole ordeal. There was a reason. Foone was staying perfectly still in one place. He was standing over a sewer vent, and from that vent, in little fast-moving wisps, were 2 streams of water, wrapping themselves around his legs, both cementing him in place and restocking whatever he put out.
His ammo's being sustained. Everything he shoots goes into the trench they blew in this street, then straight back up to the drain underneath him. Fly built some kind of machine to pump the water almost as fast as he's shooting it.
But just almost, right? It's going in slower than it's coming out. Look at how much he's exhausting, keeping them both tied down. He can't possibly be taking in as much water as he's shooting right now. No way!
Yeah, my readings indicate the incoming is flowing slower than the outgoing, but does it really matter? The point is, he can keep this up a hell of a lot longer than it'd seem because he's getting replenished. Eventually he'll run out of water, but will that happen before Jackson runs out of oxygen or Sydney runs out of nitrogen and then they both just die anyway?
Will it?
Short answer is no fucking way. They're dead ducks in there, Charlie. They're both pressing against it with all their might. If they lose focus for a second, they're washed on down the road like debris. They can't step out into the murder current, and eventually they'll suffocate in there. There's no escape, no stopping him as long as he's taking up water.
It's Fly. Fly's the one giving him the water, right? Because he thinks he can keep Foone under control if he monitors the water and cuts it off right after he kills you three. That's why he's up there. He's keeping Foone wet.
Maybe so, but Charlie, wait a minute, because I think...
I did not wait. I couldn't wait. I grouped up to Fly without another moment of hesitation. I wasn't sure what I would say or do. Probably just beat him until he turned off the water, then kill him. If Foone noticed he wasn't getting replenished, he'd either cease his attack and we'd be back to where we started, or he'd keep going and exhaust his ammo, hopefully before my boys exhausted their air. Either way, it was twice now that Fly had irresponsibly over-deployed against us, and I really wanted to hit him. But when I regrouped, I was off. I mean, sort of. Not completely off, brain and jar style. Not the way Howie did to me when I tried to quit. It was less permanent feeling, less dark and black and eternal nothingness to all perceptions in all directions. Instead, it felt like static, maybe. I could see and hear, but what I saw and heard was pointless, useless blurriness and noise. My body was fuzzy and numb, like the feeling you get when you sit on your arm for too long, only everywhere. Fly must have constructed some kind of device to jam all the wireless communication and distort contact to my brain back at HQ. I could still six my body perfectly, effectively paralyzed, blind and deaf, regrouping itself a foot in front of Fly, who just chuckled and kicked it in the jaw. Then whatever, started plummeting downward back to the street where Foone was busy throttling Jackson and Sid. Could I ungroup my falling body and regroup it safely on the ground while I was disconnected like this? I had no idea. I had never attempted something that unhinged, full process grouping something miles away when I was technically just a brain in a jar. I wasn't even sure how it would work physically. Never before did I try grouping something I couldn't see or smell or feel, just purely based on sixing. I mean, I probably could. I did bullets all the time without actually seeing or feeling them. If I messed it up, I was dead, but I had to try before I went splat against the road, dead anyway. Then Jackson and Sid would finish suffocating, Fly would launch nukes against HQ, and an invincible Foone would meander over to the ocean, and apocalypse. It was the end of the world on the line. I had no choice but to try. And then I was saved from the decision, as suddenly I blinked back into consciousness inside my own body with sight and hearing and motion and everything. I was only a few feet from impact, but I ungrouped and found my footing safely on the street.
Charlie, are you alright?
Fine, I said, after popping my dislocated jaw back in. Just haven't been actually hit in a real long time. I think he jammed my brain's radio frequency.
Right? Like I was trying to tell you, that's the whole reason he told Foone to take on the guys. Because he knew he could undo you with a jammer from the readings he took during the last fight. Luckily for you, it's short range. He let me reset you before you went splat.
He let you do it? Why in the hell?
I don't know, who cares? Maybe he doesn't want to be directly responsible for any murders. Maybe Foone asked Fly to leave him Charlie?
It's irrelevant. All that matters is I just wasted more time without getting any closer to saving Jackson and Sid. I could six them inside the tidal wave cannon, grunting and sweating, muscles quivering against the strain of holding back the blast. They were just dying, and I was completely helpless to do anything but slap a man made of water and get shut off by a nerd who was too stupid to realize he was ending the world in the process of trying to save it. I just stood there, breathing and shaking, powerless, empty, for the first time in years, afraid. Fuck do I do, guys?
Get underground. Go down there and find the pump that's supplying him with more water. Ungroup it. Then maybe he'll run out of water before they run out of air.
No way. Bad idea. The rate that machine is pumping water up the sewer vent is probably at least the size of a tank. Remember the last time she ungrouped something that big?
Exactly. And Fly does too. He saw it. I'm sure he beefed it up, made it heavier and shit. If I take apart that pump, I'll be so overgrouped, Foone will blow me to bits in seconds.
So let him.
Phil, Jesus.
Seriously, Caraway, what choice do we have? If she doesn't shut off the water, Jackson and Sid die. Then it's Shayde versus Fly Foone. Everyone's dead. Motherfucking Armageddon. If she can ungroup the pump in time, Jackson and Sid live. Yeah, Foone kills her, but we can fail-safe her back. At least with Jackson and Sid combined, we have a chance against Fly Foone.
We can't fail-safe her back. Howie can. And you don't even know how that works. What if her body is pulverized and there's nothing there to fail-safe?
He's right, though, Maria. It's a risk, but I have to sacrifice myself to give the team a chance to win. We don't have any other options.
No, Charlie, listen, I don't have a good alternative, but we can't do this. It's all part of Fly's scheme. We're just playing right into his hand, just like last time. You stop his spiders, he sends dragonflies. You stop his dragonflies, he sends bombs, then missiles. It's all structured and precise and balanced sequentially like that. He coordinates it because he knows he can't beat you all in a perfectly square random battle. He wants you to ungroup the pump because he saw what happened to you when you did the spider. He knows if you do it, you're as good as taken care of. Then you die, and he just moves on to phase 2. Meanwhile, we're a fighter down and still 2 steps behind him. If we do things exactly how he wants us to, we'll lose anyway. He's already figured it all out. He's artificially fabricated his own win condition.
She had a point. So we have to get him out of the way first so the game plan is busted. And to do that, I have to do something he doesn't expect just to throw him off. Something he couldn't have a backup plan for. Something he didn't measure me doing in the last fight. Something he doesn't think I can do. Maybe something I've never done before. I had an idea. A really, really bad idea. But since we were as good as dead anyway. Sorry in advance for maybe killing your boyfriend, Maria.
Wait, what?
I grouped back into the maelstrom, behind Sid and JT. They looked fit to die any minute, and I was ready to puke from the nerves over what I was about to do, but I managed to keep composure long enough to get the plan in motion. How we holding up, guys?
We do not have much longer, I am afraid.
Sid spoke barely above a whisper, thrusting his shoulder into the truck. It twisted my guts to do what I was about to do to Sydney, but I couldn't see another way out. Sid, how long can you hold down this fort on your own? I'm gonna borrow Jackson. They both looked at me in exasperated disbelief. The two of them were on the brink of death together. How could one take it on by himself? But Sid nobly flung himself around the truck, bracing it against his back with his arms outstretched like Atlas holding up the globe.
Not long. I will do what I can.
That's my boy.
Charlie, what's the strategy here? Even if Sid can hold this alone, the current will rip me to shreds. How the hell am I gonna get out of this pocket without getting taken to pieces?
Kind of my intention. He shot me a terrified look, like he'd put together my idea. You trust me, JT?
Of course I do, with my life.
No hesitation, no semblance of a doubt. Good. I might need your life. I'll group you out, you get Fly, understand? No Fly, no puppet master to orchestrate his plan, then I'll shut off the water, and Sid, try to hold tight. I couldn't even finish the thought. Staring at his enormous frame bracing against a truck, imagining my world without him. His yellow snake-slit eyes that terrified me, haunted my dreams when he used to glare at me bound up in the dungeons, now so tender and sweet, silently imploring me to make my bold, impossible move before his courage wore off. You know what? Fuck it, here.
Charlie, why on earth are you paging me in the middle of—
If Sydney goes down, I interrupted, not breaking my firm eye contact with my titanic purple monster brother. You failsafe him back. It was silent for a moment, but I gave Prophet his time to absorb the blow, to reconcile the blunt venom in my tone. Intentionally, I didn't phrase it as a request.
Yes. You have my word, I will failsafe him back.
Sydney smirked, nodded at me, but I wasn't satisfied. I want you to understand something, Prophet.
What is that, my dear?
I will kill you if you don't. With the exception of the tube of water we were all engulfed in, howling all around us, the only motion anywhere around was the quiver of Sydney's lip. I glowered into his soul, intent that he knew for certain how deeply sincere I was.
Charlie.
I know. I know how hard it is to do that, and I know you have me deep under your thumb, but I need these words echoing in your skull. If you don't fail-safe Sydney today, I won't rest until you're dead.
I understand. I swear to you on my life that he will be revived.
Today.
Today. I'm walking out of my office now to get the failsafe prepared, all right?
I still hadn't broken my steadfast eye contact with Sydney. I hung up without a word.
Charlie, I've never heard you talk to him like that.
I've never heard anyone talk to him like that.
I didn't respond to them. I was too transfixed on him. I love you, Big Purple. He nodded, tears welling up on his eyes, and feebly grinned that shark-tooth grin.
And I love you both. Now go. I will see you soon.
I grabbed Jackson by the shoulders, and I ungrouped both of us straight up out of Tyler's blast. I never understood time dilation. Phil had told me it should have some impact on my actions with the speeds I went, but I could never figure out if time should be moving slower or faster for me. God, I hoped, let it be slower. I had never waited so long for a single heartbeat. I had him, my boy, all pieced back together, all regrouped in one solid chunk. It looked like him, it felt like him, it even sixed, like I put everything right back where it belonged, and I had sixed him more intensely and thoroughly over the course of the last 10 months than I had ever sixed anything in my life. But he wasn't moving or breathing, just falling right with me, eyes closed, a very convincing Jackson replica, and maybe that was all. I smacked him. Then again, harder. He didn't respond. Oh, fuck. Oh no. Come on, JT. I killed him. No, not you. Come on, Jackson. All I want is a heartbeat. Holy fuck, I killed my best friend. Jackson, I need you to open your eyes, dude. I need you to. We gotta win this one, okay? I can't really explain why, buddy, but I have shit I need to tell you. Lots of big, important shit. Monumentally important shit. The most important shit. What it's all about. Look, I know we said we wouldn't leave things unsaid anymore, but I did it. I need you awake so I can undo it. Please, JT, let me undo it. I can't win this without you. Jackson, I need you. God damn it, open your fucking eyes. I threw my arms around his neck, sobbing into him, ready to fall the rest of the way, wrapped around him, to die and to lose. His eyes flashed open. Suddenly, the fly was falling, and falling fast, screeching like a banshee as Jackson yanked him out of the sky into a warehouse behind us and beneath him. He crashed through the glass roof with a deafening shatter. Our eyes met briefly, and the battle paused as we hovered, 40 feet in the air.
I got Fly.
I got Foone, and he dashed into the warehouse while I grouped under the ground. My blood was pumping, man. I was psyched up. My first successful group of another person right in the thick of a fight like this. So when I found the big-ass machine in the sewers that Fly had rigged up to replenish Foone, I set all that adrenaline straight to work. I grouped on top of it 30 feet tall, grabbed it with both hands, and started trying to ungroup it. It went almost twice as fast as the spider did. Maybe a minute, a little less. But it had that same ungodly sensation associated with it where all my sensory perceptions went pandemonium for a bit. The faintly crescendoing buzzer, total body numbness, the dreams where you have to stack up boxes, but every time you put one on top of another, the whole thing topples down. I was incredibly aware of my teeth. It smelled like beach balls and cinnamon and fish. Then suddenly, nothing. Where I was standing except a current of water running down through the sewage lines. The machine was ungrouped. The roaring buzz of it in action instantly silenced. And that nasty guttural sensation showed up like my stomach couldn't tolerate having a single thing within it. I was spent. Hardcore overgrouping syndrome. But with Fly out of the picture, it was only a matter of beating a bounded, limited Tyler. I couldn't stop thinking that maybe there was a chance still that I could help Sydney, trying to hold that truck against the titanic force of Foone's water cannon. By now, Tyler would have realized that the water was not coming back into him. He would have stopped firing for fear of getting completely dry. But if he'd already managed to take Sid down before I ungrouped the pump, there was nobody up there to oppose him. And if he hadn't, I had to try to save Sydney. In perhaps the stupidest decision of my young life, I decided to immediately group back above to do just that. At least to stall him for long enough for Jackson to come back and finish him off. It knocked me literally on my ass almost instantly after I'd resurfaced, mostly because I'd regrouped about 4 feet higher than I'd intended. Hell, I was lucky to have gotten above ground at all, given how out of whack everything was, the double vision, the vertigo, the tingling sensation on all of my extremities. I tried to stumble up to my feet and fell forward onto my face instead. I took just a second to close my eyes and try to refocus. Any semblance of orientation would have been marvelous. And during that second, I felt Tyler's hand wrap around my neck as he hoisted me into the air.
Now, pretty girl, did you shut my water off?
I vomited all over his face. Couldn't hold it in anymore, but it was a pretty good place to put it regardless. This displeased him. Puking always made things feel better, and no exception for overgrouping syndrome. Lucky for me, it gave me back some form of clear sight, just in time for Tyler to cast me onto the ground and rear back to fire a jet into me. For the second time in as many fights with this guy, I was motionlessly lying there, too broken to escape, waiting for him to tear my flesh to pieces, hoping JT could handle the Fly and get back out here in time. Thwart Tyler, failsafe Sid and I. Happy ending. All I could do now was die. But then he stopped. His face, ugly enough already, contorted into the most horrified, painful expression I'd ever seen. I heard a hissing noise, and he opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but all that came out was an airy grunt. When I looked into his mouth, I could see right through it, to the street behind him. Slowly, his eyes rolled up, and he fell forward beside me on his knees. And then I finally understood what was going on. Tyler Foone's head was being devoured by K-Pack. Once it was gone, he dropped onto his stomach, and slowly, pent-up water still stored within his torso, arms, and legs started seeping out of him as his body went from translucent dark blue to pale aqua to regular old Tyler colored.
I am sorry if that rescue was disrespectful to your gender.
Sydney was hunched over and limping toward me.
Surely, you are the greatest warrior of us all.
No, I insisted, then retched a bit and swallowed. That one was a pretty good one. I needed it. I teetered onto my feet, and he threw his arms out to me for support. We took a brief stint to ensure our cognizance, enjoy our survival, appreciate each other. Plus, I was really hoping that guy would get a super gruesome death. I puked on him, then you melted his head. It's basically the most fitting end for him ever.
Charlie,
Yeah, bud.
I would like to go to bed.
I laughed, shakily bracing myself against the purple man who'd saved my life despite his own tenuous footings in consciousness. I thought for sure you'd be toast by now. I'm really glad you're alive, Sid.
And I am glad you are alive.
My stomach rolled, as it had been doing all day, but this was not from OGS, not from Tyler hitting on me. I'd suddenly remembered that Jackson had gone for the fly, after I'd spent the better part of 2 months making sure he never got the opportunity to be one-on-one with him. I couldn't erase from my brain the look in Jackson's eyes back in Phil's lab after the last time Fly had attacked us. I knew he would kill him, and for everything in the world, I could not let that happen. If Jackson equalized Fly, the entire world-saving mission was as good as a loss. The world might as well have ended. At least for me. Sid, we can't let Jackson kill Fly. He nodded, and we, the two cold, hard killers ready to pass out from exhaustion, ran into the warehouse to save our friend from joining our tortured ranks. Or maybe the people we were saving all along were ourselves. We left the decapitated body of a madman floating in his own unused ammunition.
Thank you for listening to The Beam Chronicles, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. There's 4 episodes left in Book 1. This has always been a personal creative project first and foremost, but it's admittedly been challenging to persevere at times. Hard to convince myself I'm not just broadcasting into the void. I kind of think that I am. But if you disagree, if you're standing in that void hearing it, I'd love a bit of feedback to the contrary, even just a message to tell me you're listening, just to push me through the last few weeks. I don't even know if people listen to this part of the podcast, but beamchronicles@gmail.com. I'm also casually and cautiously looking ahead to the next phase of this, what I want to do between Book 1 and Book 2. In that vein, anyone who's interested in drawing some stuff for me for social media promotion and stuff, I set aside a bit of money to make that happen, and I'd rather pay a listener than a stranger, so again, reach out if that appeals to you. If you haven't already done so, a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple goes a very long way. Like, follow, subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. All music and sound effects were sourced from the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Sergio Duarte for creating the cover art for this podcast. Thanks again for listening.